Back here with Coach's Corner again with Mike Robertson, and we're gonna dive into stuff that, well, listen, anybody needs, but especially if you're playing sports, especially for basketball players.
Yeah. Weekend warriors,
because the incidence of this has gone up dramatically, which is Achilles tears, Achilles issues, foot issues.
Yep.
Obviously, all of this is interconnected, so it might be calves, it might be things of that nature. So let's touch on first kind of like some 10,000 foot principles when it comes to strengthening the Achilles, making it more durable per se. Right. Again, things that if you carry over to the court and you're playing basketball twice a week for an hour, hour and a half. Again, maybe, I know a lot of people that have tore their Achilles doing something completely, like they got to do something fast in life, and boom, it goes, right?
Yes.
So how do you, not only how do we strengthen it, make it more durable, how do we integrate this into our training? Talk about frequency, things of that nature.
Great question. So first of all, I'm a big believer, if we're going to do lower leg stuff, if you're trying to get on the court, if you're on the soccer pitch, at least twice, if not 3 times a week. This has got to be a focal point of your training. I think for a long time, we almost like clowned.
It's like the
it's like the last thing you're gonna do, right? Like, oh, it's an afterthought, or I should do some calf work, and you blow through it. But I think we're taking this a lot more seriously now, right? And we see a lot of people, high-level athletes, weekend warriors, people that are just like you said, walking around and they've got calf, Achilles, foot issues. So I'm a big believer. You got to have multiple activities, multiple intensities, multiple speeds. Like, you got to kind of check all these boxes, right?
Okay, let's dive into that. Let's dive into that.
So strength training.
Okay.
Let's say you're in the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you are serious about sports, then you need to be doing a calf activity probably each of those days. Great thing about this is you got to do different activities with different body positions. Okay, so I had like a tendon expert, Jared Anflick, on my podcast a while back. He's like, the 3 boxes you have to check. 1 would be straight leg standing activities.
So that would be, I'm gonna do one real quick, support it here. But it would be, if I'm here.
Zoom out so we can get all these calves in the picture,
baby. Man. They're not big, but it's like loading up, whether it's single leg, double leg, with load ideally. I mean, obviously, maybe at the beginning it's body weight. So, but my legs are locked out, or they're close to locked out and straight. Okay, so that would be
number 1.
That box. Okay.
Number 2, standing with knees bent. Okay, so it's just like a subtle little change, but you're starting.
So this is when we're here. And you'll instantly, as soon as you feel that, like, you'll instantly know, like, because you'll feel your Achilles more here.
Yes.
As soon as you bend those knees, you'll feel that Achilles more. Okay, so, but we're strengthening under load with bent knees. Okay.
Yes. Third option would be a seated calf. Okay, and I know, like,
you got a seated calf machine over
there.
You
got a machine, you don't have a machine. Sit on a bench, put a kettlebell, weight, whatever, literally just do this. Okay, now, big things when it comes to these activities, because again, sometimes we put it at the end of our session, so it's like, oh, we just mindlessly blow through it. No, like, technique is actually important here, right? We want full ranges of motion. So you want full dorsiflexion in the bottom or whatever you have access to. And when you're coming up, this is something that I've tried to put a big emphasis on, is getting full great toe extension, right? Nobody's talking about great toes, but like really trying to get up and through that great toe when you're doing these exercises.
Because you'll see a lot of this, right? If you zoom in on my feet, where people come up, they're rolling to that outside of the foot because they're already being driven there. So one of the things that's really helped me with doing this is squeezing a little ball in between my heels. So whatever you're doing, you imagine this ball, obviously I'm pretending it's there, but when I squeeze it, there's no other way to go than to drive to that inside line of the foot. And trust me, like, you instantly feel the different activation in your muscles when you're doing that. Because again, you can like just like overwork these, and I like to, this is kind of like the ridge, and this is the bridge of the foot. So we gotta strengthen that bridge of the foot.
Absolutely.
So that's an important one, right?
So, and then when you're talking about, okay, when we do this, like making sure we leave our ego at the door. Because a lot of times we think, oh, this should be a strong muscle, right? It's got great levers, but a lot of times when we isolate it, we tease it out, we slow it down, because that's the point of this, right?
It's very humbling.
Slower, it's very humbling, and we use a lot less weight than we think we should. So those are the big check marks that I would be looking for. Then the other piece that I think is important is having this like long-term progression, right? So yeah, just like any program, you're gonna start with higher volume, 3x12, 3x15, but over time, like, if we're really serious about getting strong, we may need to do some lower rep stuff, right? 6, 8s. It's not like you're doing heavy singles. It's not a squat or a deadlift, but like 6 or 8s, and really trying to get that calf and that Achilles complex strong. So putting an emphasis on strength, I think, is super valuable.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to touch on is isometrics. Like obviously there's been a lot more about isometrics. So for anybody that doesn't know what that means, it means that I'm either holding a weight, so this would be yielding isometrics, so I got a weight and I'm just resisting that weight, right? And just holding that position, or I'm pushing into an immovable object, again, isometrically, just holding that position. So again, would you mix that, because we got our traditional rep ranges going from 5, 6 reps to 12 reps, and then also inserting high intensity, I would say yielding, overcoming isometrics for short periods of time, trying to really drive. By the way, those are very hard. Imagine I have
an immovable weight,
and I'm just driving into that. I mean, talk about cramping of your muscles really quick, but it's beneficial because it creates a crazy amount of tension, and then it creates adaptations in those tendons.
For sure. So it comes down to where are we at in our program, right? So hopefully you're not like, yo, I'm gonna go play 2 hours of pickup ball this weekend. You kind of build back up to it if you're a weekend warrior, or there's an off season where you're building yourself up. So maybe we start with that higher volume stuff early on, just building the strength, building the muscle size, the connective tissue. And then over time, as part of a periodized program, now, right before we go to season, those overcoming isometrics are killer for rate of force development, right? For tamping everything together and really increasing explosiveness and power, right? So that's where I do more of the overcoming stuff. The yielding stuff is really good for people that are dealing with like tendinopathies. And some people will go back and forth on this, the jury's still out, but there are a very large swath of the population where if they've got like Achilles tendinopathy, they do these long duration iso holds, and in a matter of weeks, it goes away.
Can go away.
And the great thing is, if this works for you. So let's say you're doing a seated calf raise, right? You're going 3 by 30 second holds.
So imagine I'm here, I'm sitting down, whether I have weight or not. I'm driving these up as far as I can, pushing with the load, and I'm holding for 30 seconds, just in that top position. So that's what an overcoming isometric would be, and then progressing that time, 30, 35 seconds, 40 seconds, progressing the load. If you have pain, those are very useful to use in your strength training.
And you'll notice almost right away, for a lot of the population, have this analgesic effect, right? So as soon as you do it, you're like, oh, that feels better, right? So that's a really good sign that a yielding type of isometric will be beneficial for you.
Okay. Now, where do we plug in? Because these are important. Plyometrics, because it has to be a mix of strength training, the different modalities we talked about, and plyometrics, and both extensive and intensive, which just means some are like less intensity, we're doing more of them. Intensive ones are high intensity, we're doing less of them. And where they come into play.
So same kind of concept, right? So if we're thinking over the course of 3 months, and you do your high volume strength training and you progress to your high intensity isometrics. Same thing with your jump training, right? And your plyometric training. So early on, probably not going to go out and try and do repeat bounce or high intensity box jumps. So maybe,
and I want to show the kind of what extensive are. This would be an example where it's like, this is not a lot of intensity for me. And if I'm just doing these jumps, these are extensive, but I would be doing more of them for longer periods of time versus me doing a depth jump into the highest possible jump possible. That would be more intensive.
Right. So we start the off season with these more extensive variations, right? And I think something that's super important is getting out of just this purely front and back. So we talk a lot about, hey, you're jumping rope, go side to side, go scissor. Find all these different foot positions, ankle positions. People clown on the agility ladder. But hey man, that's a great position if somebody gets used to all these different shapes of their foot, landing in different positions. It really helps kind of just build a little bit more resilience in the calf, the lower leg, the Achilles. So I'd start with that, and then over time, then you progress to the higher intensity stuff, right? Because the goal is at the end of your off season, before you go into preseason, you're feeling as strong and resilient as possible. But to do that, you have to expose the body and the tissues to higher intensity activities and drills.
So let's take now these two and just take, when I say traditional strength program, let's say you're on a strength program, you're trying to get stronger, more powerful, faster. how would you, and let's go start with the off season, moving into the early off season into the preseason. How would you combine those when it comes to the strength training and the plyometrics? Just think that somebody's doing a strength training program. How would you insert that throughout a week?
So generally we're going to do something for that area every day. So let's say they're coming in the gym 3 days a week. What we'll generally do is, the power, the speed, the explosiveness, I call that R4, your reactive work. That's going to go in early in the session. So you go through your warm up. Now I'm going to do my extensive jumps, right? I'm going to do my jump rope. I'm going to do my pogos. And then we follow that up with our strength work. Over the course of that off season, now our R4 is that really high intensity explosive work, right? We're doing our heavy box jumps. If we're doing like Haydn's, we're really getting into and pushing out, really pushing the intensity. And then we also know with our strength training, that's where we're getting after it, right? We're doing those heavy, overcoming isometrics. So again, just thinking big picture, right? Really broad and foundational up top, and then creating a wide base for our pyramid. So when they go to camp, again, they're strong, they're healthy, and they're resilient.
Would it be a good too, like let's say you got a 3-day-a-week strength program, and you split it out, right? We just talked about, we have one day we have locked out knees and doing some exercise for that. Day 2 we have bent knees, still standing. Day 3 we have seated variation. And also, again, like, we're maybe playing around with rep ranges a little bit, or maybe one day we do a longer isometric yielding hold, and some days we're doing reps. And it's spread out.
Absolutely.
But again, this is important because if this is something you want to improve, you can't let it be an afterthought. And that's something that Mike is like really bringing to light. If you go and play, 2 hours of basketball on the weekend once a week, and you're doing traditional strength training, you're not focusing on this whatsoever, not doing extensive plyometrics, not strengthening your foot and Achilles, you're gonna run into some problems, okay? It's inevitable. And I'm a trained individual in the gym, and when I went to do some track and field sprinting and started playing basketball, very quickly, the Achilles said, "What's up, bro?" And it's like going back to the gym, starting to do these strength training, starting to do an extensive plyometrics, some of those holds that will, again, like made me feel a lot better, a lot quicker. Everything started improving, not only performance, but just not having issues. And again, this is why, plug these into your program, follow the protocol we just talked about, and hit us up if you got any questions or if you want to see more content like this. We'll see you next time in Coach's Corner.